All right, I'm back. So, my attic when I was a kid had a lot of things up there that you could go and investigate. So, if you were bored downstairs, you'd go up in the attic. I would go up in the attic and disappear for hours going through things. And one of the things, my mother had a box up there about that big, and it was full of buttons. And I used to open it up, spread it around, and look at the different button designs. And I've always liked buttons. This is one of 3 bags that I have full of buttons. Delicious water. So look at that. Oop. Almost lost one there. So there's a nice big green button if you have a raincoat. Look at this one. Little button there. My mother had the buttons, and in there were these little, about that size, and they were black on the rim and golden on the center part. There's a good looking button right there. So, you know, if you ever have a button that pops off and you lose it, you can go through this collection and find something similar. I have a bunch of white ones, dress shirt buttons. Look at this little one here. Kind of like this one, except my mother's was black on the outside and gold on the center. Very tiny. All these different designs. Fascinating. That's a good looking button. You know, it's kind of like you're getting lost inside some weird room, the room of buttons. Wow, this one's a cool little button right here. Tough to grab onto. Right there, good looking button. Then this is a big button. Have a red button right here. Red button. This is like an Irish looking button. A lot of green in here. You go to Ireland, you're going to need green buttons. Blend into the background where the grass grows. So this is another good looking button. Good looking button. So yeah. My mother saw this one time, and I had the other ones here. It was like a bigger pile, and she's like, what do you need those buttons for? I go, you never know. You lose a button, you come here, you find a button. Imagine you can't find a button and you can't button your shirt. And I'm not a fan of, you know, those guys that leave the button down to here opened, like $6 Million Man, down to here. I like my thing up to here somewhere. I don't want to, you know, be out, you know, talking, and you know, I'm not into that kind of style. And I'm also not into Burt Reynolds pants, you know, the tight jeans. I like them loose. Not a fan of tight clothing. Look like Burt Reynolds walking around with tight jeans on. This is a good button. Yeah, there's so many. Tough to choose just one, but a lot of good looking buttons in here. This is a transparent button. I feel like I'm messing around with the pylon on Land of the Lost. controlling the weather. Remember they used to go into that pyramid looking thing, and in the middle of that room there was some kind of table, not that big, kind of like half of this size, and they would mess around with the marbles or whatever those were, stones, and then it would change the weather. I love watching that show, Land of the Lost. A lot of mystery. When I was a kid, you know, life is a mystery, especially when you're little. You're looking around, you don't know, maybe they have more answers than they're telling us. They don't. They don't. Especially in those days, a lot of science was not known. And even now, we are in the infancy stages of discovery. Infancy. We think we know a lot, we actually don't. Very little. But back then we knew even less, so that's why they resorted to superstition. Yeah, a little teeny weeny, but this is a good looking button right here. Get that. And then we have a bigger button here. Good looking button. Oh, this is a nice colorful red, white, and blue button. Look at that, red, white, and blue. That's what we played with in the old days. You know, our minds would find the simplest things to play with, right? Box of buttons, maybe a puzzle with 500, not 5,000, 500 to 1,000 pieces. That was always fun. You'd sit there, where's the piece? And that would be entertaining. Now it's kids look at that and they're like, give me my iPhone. You know, but when I was little, small things, you know, hide and go seek was very popular. Who plays that in it? Nobody plays hide and go seek. I thought it was called hide go seek. Everybody would say it quickly, let's play hide go seek. And I would say Hangul. Thought it was just the name of the game, hide go seek. And then somebody, I think was like a teacher, said it's slow. So are you guys gonna play hide and go seek? And all of a sudden I had a light bulb on the top of my head pop up, and I go, oh, that's what they're saying all this time? Hide and go seek? It's like a mouthful. My way is better, hide go seek. Oh, nice button here. Look at this little teeny weeny thing. Teeny weeny button. It's like my father would always say, Sitrak. Sitrak. So I thought sheetrocks were called Sitrak. And one day when I got a little bit older, we were at the lumber yard, and he said to me, to save time, why don't you go and tell that guy we need 10 sheetrock. And as I'm walking, I go, I know that's not the correct pronunciation, I know, but that's the way he says it, and my father's been saying it for years that way, so that's the only way I know it. So what am I going to tell the guy now? So I went up to the counter, guy with a beard, and I said, I'd like to order 10 Sitrak. And he goes, what? And I said it again, this time slower. And he gave me the what thing again. I was like, what? And with a face too, like I annoyed him. And then I said, you know, I go, the stuff that they screw onto the walls, it's like a wall thing. He's like, oh, he goes, you mean sheetrock? And I go, yeah, that's what I mean. You didn't know that? And then I thought about it. I go, see, that makes sense. Sheet, rock. Now they call it drywall. But, you know, when I was younger, it was called sheetrock. And my father called it sitrak. But I knew for years, you know, the way he was saying it was not the correct way. I knew it. but I didn't know what the correct way was until that guy told me, "You mean sheetrock?" And then I said, "Yeah, that's exactly what I mean. Thanks for telling me," because up until that moment, I had no idea what my father was saying. So it's kind of like when we would go to a sub shop or something, and my father wanted garlic powder on whatever he was eating, and they would ask him, "You want anything else?" And my father would go, "Yeah, give me a garlics." And the guy would be like, "What?" And then my father would look at me, like, explain to him what I'm saying. So I would say garlic. And then we'd sit at the table. My father would say, "It's their language, and they don't even know how to talk. They don't even understand." He goes, "It's their language." And I'm like, "Yeah, it's true. It's their language, but it's garlic, not garlics." Although I would have, if somebody came to me and I was at a, pizza place making sandwiches, and I said to somebody, "What do you want? You want anything else on that?" And they said, "Put some garlics on it," I would figure it out instamatically. So you have to be a little bit dense not to figure that out. I mean, what else could he be referring to? Garlics, garlic. It's similar, I mean, what does he ask for? Jalapeno peppers? No. Garlics, garlic. But some people, I don't know, they play stupid or they don't understand. I don't know what it is. It's like when we would go fishing, we would stop in the morning, 5 a.m. or something, and get the bait. My uncle, who was with us, he would always ask for a dozen sea shit worms. And the guy said, "Oh, okay." It was a guy that looked like a captain. Looked like he was like, I don't know, maybe like early 60s, had the hat on too, had the bushy beard with the hair hanging over the sides. This is in the 70s, so everybody looked like that. And he would sell bait in the morning, and we'd get it, and then my father would go next door. We would get 2 dozen worms, because one for me. And then next door was a donut shop, big donut shop. The locals would be there nice and early sipping the coffee. All the old guys who couldn't stand their wives anymore, they would be there early in the morning drinking the coffee. So we would go, my father would order, they had really good blueberry muffins. But my father would always say blueberry McMafias. And the second they would hear blueberry, they knew what he meant. So they would, put the blueberry muffins in there and give it to him. Well, one day it was a new girl. And my father went in there, a young girl, like high school age, I don't know, weekends. And my father said to her, "Give me 2 blueberry McMafias." And she did a face like, and then she looked at the menu that was on the wall behind her, and then she looked at my father again, and my father repeated it. And then she looked again, and she was like, looked like she was about to cry. And then I jump in. I was a little kid back then, and I said, "Blueberry muffin." And she goes, "Oh, okay." And then she, put it in. My father grabs the bag, and we're leaving, and we're getting, closer to the station wagon. And my father goes, "Their language, and they don't understand. Their language." So, I don't know where he got the McMafia part, but he thought it was Blueberry McMafia. That's it. I'm going to put these away. These are precious to me. I don't want to lose them. Oh, there's another good looking one here. Look at this good looking button. A lot of good looking buttons in here. Nice green one. When I have things like this out and I'm, going through it, I feel like Mr. Rogers explaining to the children at home, look what I got. Mr. McFeely brought me a box of buttons today. There was another guy that, Mr. McFeely. First of all, the name, McFeely. I don't know. Nobody told Rogers, "Hey, listen, I know it's your grandfather's name, but Mr. McFeely," with a guy that's jumpy like that. And he always seemed like he was on amphetamines or something. Speed delivery, and he couldn't stop. He's always like, hopping around, even in the house, where he could have just take the box. I gotta go, speed delivery. And what was this, like on foot? That neighborhood, he walking around the neighborhood delivering stuff. And where were they coming from? No car. But I love that show. Love that show. I used to have dreams about breaking into that house when he wasn't home and messing around with Trolley. And then one time I got in there somehow. The door was open, or I picked the lock. And I sat on that bench, and I found the buttons down below, and I got I was going to say Charlie, but Trolley to come out. And then I was going back and forth, because I'm a big fan of trains. I wish I had a system like that in my house. And I made Trolley go forward into the neighborhood of Make-Believe. And then I got on the tracks, and I crawled all the way to the neighborhood of Make-Believe. And when I got there, I went into the castle where King Friday lives. And I just went to every single home. Lady Elaine Fairchild's museum go around. I went in there. I went to XD Owl's tree, Meow Meow's tree there next door to him, Platypus, and I went through the whole neighborhood, and it felt real. It felt real. And then I crawled back to the house, and then I woke up. I used to think that Mr. Rogers had a secret second home, and that was it. Like he had a wife and children in a main home. Not a main state, but a main, like his main home. And then he would get into it with the wife. She'd get on his nerves. He'd leave, and then he'd end up in this other secret house that she didn't know anything about. That's what I thought was going on. Because after a half hour, when the show was over, he'd leave again. You know, it's like the guy could not stay there, so he would leave again. Then it's like, okay, my wife, she's settled down now, I want to go talk to her. And he'd say bye to us, put the shoe on the other foot. Yeah, because I knew he wasn't living there permanently. First of all, the refrigerator was always empty. I don't know what that food, no, there was no food in there ever. And, you know, no bedroom. He had a working sink in there, would always open it up just enough to get the water out on the cup. I never, ever open up the water and put the cup underneath as the water's running without letting the water run for a while. I don't drink that water anyway. I mean, I have a filtration thing that the refrigerator has actually, and I put the cup under there and drink that water. The other water is just for, you know, for looks. But you know, if I'm going to get water out of the sink, out of the tap, as they say, I let it run 15, 20 seconds, you know, especially if it's been off like overnight or something. But I had a neighbor, I would visit him once in a while when I was a kid, and he would take a cup, open up the water, and then close it, and then, you know, sit down and drink it. And I'm thinking, first of all, that water is warm, but also it's been sitting in your pipes for who knows how long. Let it run a little bit. But he wouldn't. Too expensive. So yeah, I liked that Rogers guy, Mr. Rogers, and he was very naive, gullible, you know, grown man, but he was a little bit gullible. Had picture. So what are we gonna name this thing here? I don't know. It shows film, picture. Call it picture. It's like, what was that singer there? Lisa and Cult Jam. They named her twice. And when you say it enough times, you go, yeah, sounds right. Twice, picture. But I loved the neighborhood of Make-Believe, and I loved his neighborhood in general. Chef Brockett had the guy with the chef's hat on. He would go down there. He was always making something. And then you had the other guy, the musician. What was his name there? Can't think of his name now. Anyway, and then you had the other musician who was like the guy that would play the theme music there. Costa was his name. The other guy, Negri. It's almost a word you shouldn't say. Almost. But that's his last name, and I think he's still alive. I think he's in his 90s. I think he's one of the last ones. And maybe Feely, Mr. McFeely there. Maybe he's alive too, I think. I haven't heard anything about him dying, but that Jim Negri. Jim. Really good guitar player. I actually bought an album of his not too long ago. Good stuff. I mean, he could really play. A lot of those guys on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, they were really good musicians. Actually, all the guys that were on there for the purposes of playing music were awesome musicians. But Jim Negri and that Costa guy, you know, even the Costa guy bought his album too. Really good music. He used to play it in the truck, driving around in the desert, listening to Costa's music. I don't know what his first name was, or was that his first name? I think Costa was his last name. But yeah, and even Fred Rogers once in a while would jump on the piano and start playing. I like jazz, you know, it's like relaxing music. Get the jazz and a fireplace going, just sitting there, maybe you know, looking out the window at the pond. Charlie Parker, love Charlie Parker. Something about it, you know, it's almost like it's music without, I mean, it has a pattern, but the thing is, it's not pronounced a pattern, and you have to be really good to play jazz. Jazz and classical music, you have to know your stuff. Rock and roll, blues, not so much. You can make mistakes and it still sounds okay. Nobody knows, was that a mistake or was that on purpose? Nobody knows if it's a mistake, especially the blues. And I'm a big fan of the blues. Muddy Waters. There was a time when I couldn't get enough of him either. I would listen to Muddy Waters all the time. You Shook Me, the name of the song, You Shook Me, that's on the box collection, is the best version of that song, You Shook Me. But I love Muddy Waters. Love the guitar playing, the singing, everything about it. I always pictured myself, you know, living in the 1940s and going into one of these blues clubs where these legends would play, and being in the back of the room and having a steak and listening to the blues. I love the blues. You know, John Lee Hooker, when that Mr. Lucky album came out, I played the crap out of it, you know. But yeah, when I go to the record store, one of the places I stop is the blues section. Just, you know, without the blues, we would have no rock and roll. The blues and the bluesmen that created all that were the founding fathers, the real founding fathers of rock and roll. Maybe they were the grandfathers of rock and roll, but, you know, as Muddy Waters said, the blues had a baby, and they named it rock and roll, and that's 100% true. Anyway, that is it for now. Ciao.